Good after morning, noon, evening, whenever you are listening. Welcome to the FauxTech cast. This is a podcast, 2 words. It's not a podcast, 1 word. It's a pod cast. That sound in the background is from Mark's mink farm. This is here at the FauxPop headquarters / mink farm.
I'm glad you've explained that because it's shown up in a number of the podcasts.
I know it has.
And I thought, people are going to wonder what's going on. So now
part of the problem,
I have a mink farm.
We should not be podcasting on Slaughter Day. Like, that's the problem.
It is, but unfortunately with my business that I do on the side, every other day is Slaughter Day.
Yeah, you've got a lot of mink.
I have a lot of mink coming out of here, and I'm just really, it's actually doing really well for me. I'm actually.
I kind of tripped over the pile of carcasses on my way in.
To be fair, we should tell the folks at home, these are not for fur. This is a mink meat
That's
farm.
right. We just throw the fur out.
Yeah, the fur we throw in the garbage, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the podcast today. We're back. Mark and Mark Hussey and myself, Randall Lobb, as you know, we're here. But we've got a special new podcast starting up. We've got Anthony Wilkinson here. He's over there. There he is. Look.
Hi,
see him?
Hi on the internet, everyone.
Hello, internet.
Good day.
Anthony's here. He's I would call him a techspert. Is that a term? Techspert?
I think I've been. I don't think I've been called a techspert, but I think techspert is a very apropos term.
Did I make it up just now, or is it?
I defer to your wisdom. I think so.
I did make it up.
I think I've heard it before, but I think you pull it off. Your execution is better.
I accept.
Yeah.
So this podcast is a little different from our other podcast in that, from our mink farming podcast, in that we don't talk so much about the farming and about the agriculture, and that we talk about technology, and we address your tech questions. We address your tech problems. And by you, I mean the people who have problems, and we also update you on some things that we've read and learned, being kind of techie, nerdy type of people. And also we talk about issues in technology, and I think we can bleed out from technology into a little mainstream pop culture as it pertains to technology too.
Absolutely.
Would you say?
Yeah.
So of course the big news story that everybody's talking about this week is me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting stuff that I'm into, and people might want to know why are you laughing?
I think this is an excellent lead-in, actually.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are wondering, why do I get to talk about technology? Well, as you may know, I teach communications technology to students, and I solve many technological problems for myself by usually calling Mark Hussey. Mark, what's your technological background? How do you feel about what can you contribute to this?
Well, technology has always been in my life as long as I can remember.
Sure it has.
I think in one of the FauxCasts we discussed that at length. If you're interested,
might even be the first one
in a deeper story.
Might be the first one
that way.
It's just a callback to that first podcast.
That's right.
And what about you, Anthony? He says, segueing to the reason why he started this. What do you have to offer technologically? What are you giving to the good people of the internet?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that I've been, involved in technology and programming since I was a fetus.
Wait a minute. Programming. What are you programming?
I do some programming. I build websites. I do custom programming for companies. I'm like so many others. I'm a game designer, and getting into that field a little bit more strongly. And then people seem like, like all of us who possess some technical knowledge I do technology consulting for businesses, and, it's the same thing where somebody knows you fix computers, you become kind of popular in that sense sometimes, and people come to you for opinions and solutions to problems. So I'm here to impart that to the people.
So we actually do have something to offer then.
Yeah, I think collectively, actually, we probably know a bit about everything.
Wow, I feel very proud of myself, and I feel proud of you boys as well. I think
we're a pod.
The
podcast.
Yeah, I like that.
We're going to talk with the iPad too. Let's be honest. Can we tell the truth? Why was he doing that?
Isn't it whales? Aren't they?
Whale sound.
Oh yeah. I was waiting for the whale. That's what I was waiting for whale, like where we were rendering blubber or something. I thought that was the sound as opposed to the mink farm.
I have been rendering blubber for many years.
Well, we can change it to a whale blubber farm if you like.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't grow quite as well as the mink.
No.
Not as lucrative.
So iPad 2 came out this past week, and by came out, it was announced. It didn't actually come out. Apparently, it will be shipped or can be ordered on March 11th and then shipping towards the end of March, the 25th or
And
6th.
for us in Canada, it's March 25th.
March 25th.
Yeah.
So what do we think about the iPad 2? Wait a minute. What did we think about the iPad 1? Did we need to have an iPad 2? Why don't we start with Anthony Wilkinson? But P.S., not a Mac user.
Yes. Well, I think the iPad 2 makes sense for Apple to develop. I think we all knew when the iPad. This is always a criticism level against Apple is they
Make lots of money.
they make lots of money, delicious sweet money, and what they do is they come out with a what I would call is like a minimum viable product. So they come out with a product that's super polished, really good. There's some features that are always kind of left off that slate because we know they're going to hit it with the second one.
Right.
And I very much agree with Apple's approach with this is they only come out with really polished gems of products. And if something isn't going to fit in that iteration, they wait for the next. And as I said, the Apple people always make jokes about this, the hardcore Apple users, that we know there's going to be a camera, but we know it's going to be on the Apple too. So
Right.
I think, we all knew this was coming, and I think it should have. As far as the Apple iPad 1 is concerned, I think it was a great product. Again, in a business sense, I'm not sure where the fit is, but I think Apple 2 maybe moves a bit closer.
Also, you thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with Anthony on that. Apple obviously, they don't put something out unless it's polished, and I think that works. I agree with Anthony, that works to their benefit. I'm excited about this new iPad. I think it actually takes the iPad from a place of being less of a consumer device to more of a content creation device with one with the faster processing power.
That's how it opened up GarageBand and iMovie.
That's right. I'm sure, and it's undetermined whether those apps will run on iPad 1. I imagine they will, because it's more of an iOS 403 upgrade that's enabling that. But I'm sure they'll be a lot slower, and that'll encourage a lot of people to buy the new product.
I think that of the three of us, I've messed around maybe the most with an iPad. I have one that I use in school and use at home, mostly for the same purpose. It's content experience, like using content, consuming content, and when I say a content experience, I'm saying that because there's a number of different forms of content that are really good on it. Like it's a great PDF reader. It's a great thing for downloading. If you're downloading books from iBooks, it's great to read that. It's great to pick up stuff that you would have as a Word document or whatever, and you have to mess with it later, and reading it on the pad is nice. And the funny thing that a lot of people have found, people who have kids who aren't necessarily big readers, is it's actually jacked up kids reading, which is, I don't know why the user experience would be more conducive to kids reading, but it does seem to have boosted that.
I can see why. Like I have a 10-month-year-old little girl.
10-month-year-old little girl.
10-month. Yeah, that's right, isn't it?
10-month-year-old.
10-month-year-old.
I think they needed to convert to decimal before you put it in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's binary.
Yeah.
10-month-old little girl, and I don't have an iPad, but I do have the iPhone 4, and I gave her my old iPhone 3GS, so I kind of put her picture.
You didn't keep a SIM
background.
chip in it though. Like she's not making calls with
There's
that.
no SIM chip. And
that'd be amazing if she had
bunch of,
friends and was texting and had a real social kind
little
of
peekaboo games and
right.
and apps for kids. And it amazes me how fast she picked up on that, and like knowing so that she has to touch a certain thing. So much to the point when she picks up a real book, she's going touch.
That's an interesting comment that
book.
you make there. I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
The flip side.
And whether that's good or bad, I guess is to be determined. Obviously,
Maybe it's neither good nor bad.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
I mean, we're trying to instill some balance there, but at the same time, I'm looking at my child who's going to grow up right from birth with a touch interface.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, to me, pretty exciting to watch as a tech guy.
It's amazing.
I mean, for us, it was like dreams come true. It was like science fiction coming into reality.
Well, we had a discussion when I was in Germany in 2006-07 when the iPhone came out, that it looked exactly like a dream of something that you would have had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
It looked exactly, I mean, in every way, it was exactly the thing that you would have imagined. And for me, the iPad fits into that same category. And the beauty of the new one is, I mean, everyone says it's evolutionary, not revolutionary, but that kind of that's a bit trite. What is revolutionary about it is that they're putting software on it because it's faster. That makes it do things that make it more valuable and more interesting. And the thing that blew my mind was the GarageBand demo. I don't know if you saw that, Anthony.
Unbelievable.
Did you see that?
I had read about it. I think it is amazing. Just, you can hook up your guitar to your iPad and mix music. Now, I remember seeing somebody again doing a demo with the iPhone 4. He was doing the same thing. He was mixing live music with it, multi-track as well. So I think it is amazing. I don't know if I would call it revolutionary in that the capability I think existed, but it's opening that sort of capability to so many more people, and I think that's amazing.
I think the reason why I call it revolutionary is maybe to do with me, is that I was skeptical when it came out. I thought, this is a product that doesn't have a place in my house. I mean, I have the iPhone and I have computers and I had a laptop, so I couldn't see a way for it to fit in. But then when I got my hands on it and I put some stuff on it, and I'm not watching movies on it like many people are, that's not my interest. And I wasn't doing some of the other things that people are using it for, with the Bluetooth keyboard, taking notes or whatever. For me, it was strictly for using it on the web and then reading other material.
Right.
And when you're caching stuff with instant paper or whatever, and storing data, and for me it was screenplays or work that students hand in, it was amazing for that.
But what you're saying, I think, is that the added capabilities of the hardware now move it much closer to outright replacing laptops.
And that's where amazing. The revolutionary part comes in for me. That when I said this one is more revolutionary, it's that the tools that it opens up, or I don't know, the usages that the tools open up, I guess, or the endpoints are much more interesting.
I mean, it is, like you said, I agree. It's bringing it closer to becoming more like a laptop, like something you would take out and actually use.
I just spilled tea on your couch.
With our the stuff we're involved with, say, with the film industry, for example, and doing these podcasts. We're sitting in a studio right now with 3 computers going to do this podcast, and with some of the interfaces that can be developed for the iPad too, and the software and the speed, I could see going out with an iPhone 4, an iPad, using your iPhone 4 with the new upgrade with the hotspot enabled. So there's my Wi-Fi, and be able to stream from places where there is no other connectivity. And be able to produce it on the fly.
Let me tell you, I can't mention any names here, but someone that we know is working in the entertainment industry, and I don't think you know him, Anthony. He's putting together a show. It's a reality show, and again, I can't talk about all the aspects, but they want to do some remote stuff where they have somebody in a place, not on a site, and they want someone who is in another place, not on a site. So 2 remote locations to be able to look at each other and comment on what each other are doing. And he was saying to me, can I FaceTime back and forth? And I said, I don't think you can do that over 3G. And, there were a lot of questions. And what eventually happened was the iPad answered some of the questions. It's visually big enough to hold up and show on camera, and have someone with Skype over 3G on an iPhone 4 in another location, feeding back. Together. And so this is one of these things where... again, I come back, it is kind of revolutionary that it opens up these unforeseen abilities or unforeseen usages.
One of those features I think that is going to become really important, at least from my standpoint, is the HDMI output.
Absolutely.
Sure. Now, they've said in the announcement, I'm trying to quote from the announcement because I was trying to be clear on this, is they say all of the apps will output through the HDMI output. I don't know if that necessarily means that all of the screen display is going to be replicated through HDMI. If so, I think it's going to become a very powerful teaching tool, very powerful for training purposes, and very powerful to perhaps even replace the media center, which is another one of those touch againsts.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people were saying that it would actually replace an Apple TV or any kind of device like that. And it's only a matter of time before someone comes up with some kind of wireless HDMI. I know they're already out there, but a wireless HDMI connector that you could connect to the bottom of your iPad, because as far as the media device, having to have it plugged into your television and it's sitting, you'd need an awful long HDMI cable to make that actually really useful.
Yeah.
But using a wireless HDMI connection to your big screen TV, all of a sudden you've got an Apple TV.
Yeah, exactly.
in your hand, and you can be streaming from your desktop in another room or whatever. And they also the improvements to AirPlay make it pretty awesome. And to answer your question there, Anthony, about the output of the HDMI, it's my understanding that the output will be basically anything that's on the iPad. So
yeah, it's cloned out.
It's just a mirrored image of the screen. So that's really, really handy. That'll be handy for us if we're reviewing an iPad app, for example. We can just pop it into a channel here and bring it up on the screen.
Can I segue out of that?
Sure.
I just wanted to throw out a mention of an app that you and I are using right now. That is a pretty interesting app.
Yeah.
Where do you are messing around with apps? You wanted to get into gaming with apps, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Can you maybe? We'll transition to that. I want to just talk about this app that's really powerful, and I'll just flip it up here. It's for people who are trying to either make themselves more healthy or eat more correctly. It's called Lose It, and it's an amazing app. And just very quickly, Mark and I, as you know, are obese middle-aged men, and we're trying to watch what we eat, trying to get a little healthier, get a little stronger, get a little more sexually interesting to others, even though we're both married men. But, as you get older and as your testosterone dwindles down to a very small supply, you need to feel important in the world. Mm-hmm. And the way that you feel important is by having, less body fat and more muscle. If you have less hair and less sexual attraction, you want less.
It's got to come from somewhere. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So it may sound like I'm joking, but this is an amazing app. It's called Lose It, and I think Mark just threw something up. When you join Lose It, you have the ability to punch in, the foods that you eat and the calories that you took in and the other nutritional components. And then, the exercise that you do. And so it's calories in, calories out. And it's just a way of counting and keeping track. And even if you're not interested in losing weight, or if you're not interested in, exercising to the degree that you want to balance those things out, it just makes you aware of what you're eating and what you're doing. It's a free app. It's called Lose It, LOSEIT, and heard about it through your sister, actually, Mark.
Yeah.
And she's had real good success with it, apparently. And my wife picked it up, and I picked it up. And again, it's not because, I was joking. We're not really obese people, but I just want to be more conscious of what I'm eating as you get older.
You're quite handsome, man. Quite handsome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I also... I think that you're a handsome man as well. Although it's awkward that you said that, and now I kind of have to.
Yeah, we're handsome men.
We're all very handsome men.
But what a great app!
For those of you listening,
you can plug in the foods that are there. Like, it has a huge list of things, very specific calorie counts, and then you can also obviously add your own foods, and it remembers them. It remembers specific meals. So if you're like Mark or I, who tends to eat the same things at the same time, it just bam.
Yeah, I've tried other apps like this, and this is the first one that made it. Like, I can do this every day for that very reason, that it remembers your meals.
Yeah.
Because shopping apps and, like grocery store apps, you're like, always, you spend more time putting the information in and touching your iPhone than actually doing the job. And what I like a lot about this too is it gives you that social networking element.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, so that I can see Randall Lobb's attempt of the day, and he can look at mine.
Just the way you said that made it sound like it was poor. Like you said attempt as if it was not successful.
And you can weigh in, and it kind of it gives you that sense of encouragement. Like it make it kind of.
I don't know. That wasn't encouraging. You just said Randall Lobb's attempt of the day, then you laughed as if to say.
Well, you could say the same thing back at me.
I'm not, but I'm not saying it. That is
because I'm actually looking at it more like a video game.
Yeah,
well, that's exactly why I was.
This is where I'm going to jump in, because I think one of the big advances in gaming, or one of the things that's changing gaming, is that we're bringing our friends together, and the idea of like this shared high score list, where I don't necessarily care where I place in the 6 million other users of this app or game, is I care where I place within the social network of people I'm involved with. So, for instance, if we're all using this Lose It app, then perhaps I want to be the one losing the most weight
in the group.
In the group, right. Yeah, I don't care how much weight I'm losing against everybody in the planet.
Well,
absolutely.
The segue I was looking for there, then I was hoping you were going into, and now I'm actually disappointed that you didn't go there. So I'm really kind of taking back the things I said about you earlier, about you being handsome. But I like the idea that we are making everything into a game.
the gamification of
I
the,
think
the
that
world.
is brilliant, and I want to even take it further. It's a game to be healthier and to calculate, calories in, calories out. And for whatever people might think, how vain and obsessive are we that we are getting into that? To me, that's not the point. That's a private thing, and I wouldn't have brought it up except that I wanted to get to this. That turning that into a game makes an experience that is inherently not fun at all, almost fun.
Well, let me jump in on that then, because one of the problems, I shouldn't say opportunities, I'll be like one of those people.
I love that.
In the website and web design business, not from my side, but from the customer side, is that they go out and they build a website and they put lots of features, and that allows them to self-update, allows them to connect to social networks, and then they lose the will to continually update it and to continually reach out to other people.
I mean, look at our website. It's impossible to keep up.
By adding a gamification layer on, I don't know. That's
a terrible term.
By adding a game layer on top of that, or bringing in gaming elements to those systems. Thank you.
Well spoken.
Is that you can reward those behaviors, and you can create internal to a company. Is you can create a reward structure and a game structure to make the ongoing maintenance of your system and of your communicating with clients. You can make that more enjoyable.
Here's what I wanted to get at. What has to happen is we have to hijack the reward system that's in our brain. So in effect, World of Warcraft, which we've discussed before but off podcast, it is only fun insofar as you make it fun. You're just you're clicking 4 or 5 buttons or whatever, 10 or 12 buttons, and it's a largely mental interpretation of activities. So if the sword that you get by killing that monster is valuable, it's valuable because you make it so.
Yeah. And it's constantly reinforcing those positive feedbacks.
So why can't that be the case with anything, with dieting, with exercising, with updating a website for a company? Or how about this? I want to take this further. Why do we have to get grades in school? I'm a teacher, as many people know. When I do this, when I look in this direction, I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at the monitor. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the monitor. Why do we have to get marks? I want experience points in school.
Yeah.
So I want to say this. Kids handing in their work are getting experience points towards the next level. And the next level might not be the next grade. It could be the next unit or whatever. And so there's got to be, for this to work, there would have to be a whole trash of the system.
I think, and it really that touches back on the kind of the self-paced learning sort of ideas that were perhaps experimented a little bit more, I think, in the 80s. Now, I just remember reading about some schools where there was not necessarily classes and classrooms.
Well, a little more open.
Yeah, where it was a little bit more of an open structure. And I think the nice thing about the game systems is that the game is designing the framework for those people to. So basically, I work at math, I work at algebra until I get a certain level of proficiency. All of a sudden, I'm level 2 at algebra. And now I can, and I think that was actually really done. This is when I was in grade 3. There was a reading unit, and they were coded in colors. So you would read things from your color.
SRA, I think it was called.
Yeah, you would take the test, and then if you pass the test, you'd move up to the next color.
Yeah, I did the same thing. You probably did it too, Mark.
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
So I blew through that. I was reading at a high school level or something ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing. Aside from taking the opportunity to toot your own horn, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
Look at, he's going to switch the camera. What I want to say about that is, and this is because I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they geared it for boys in a sense that boys want to compete. Boys have when you see a boy playing Black Ops, the boy will play it for as many hours as he is allowed, or as many hours as he's able to stay awake. But the boy doesn't want to read books in school, or the same cares are different. If we turn things into a game structure, or pull elements of gaming structure into things we want boys to do, boys will do them with the same kinds of drives.
Exactly.
Now, this is not to say that it's a panacea that you can just, hey, it's going to be fun to learn math, and the kid says, oh, I love math because I got level 6 algebra. Yeah. There have to be elements that are incorporated and not, and there's a certain amount of accepting, math is maybe not fun, period.
Well, I think those sorts of things, those are good game design, helps alleviate some of those factors,
Absolutely.
but they will continue to exist as they continue to exist in World of Warcraft. We have this term we've come up with as gamers called grinding.
Absolutely.
Or farming.
And we do it.
Which we do because we know that it's a deferral of feedback, or it's a deferral of pleasure.
Right.
We know that we have to, we're going to have to spend a couple hours doing something really repetitive, but that's going to allow us to move on
You
to
get
something
the badge,
that's
you
greater.
get the new weapon,
That's
you
right.
get the different
And it's
upgrades.
all based on exactly what we're talking about, getting to that
Hijack
next
the reward
level.
system.
And it's certainly that there's a competitive element there too, especially if
Well,
you're
this
playing
is-
with a group of people.
This is what I wanted to get at with the colors when he said he went through silver and gold and you want to get to the platinum or whatever the top is. And right now, when you say to a kid, you can get 70, you can get 75, the kid, it's not as real, or somehow, for many it is.
Well, that's the amazing part. Is that I still remember how difficult purple was. I don't know what level purple was, but I remember having to like rewrite that test or redo that unit because I took the test that didn't go well. So
Absolutely. Hey, man, I have the
amazing
same
we all
exact
remember
memory.
that, yeah.
I remember walking around the room trying to see what everybody's color was and being a prick and crowing about, well, I'm already in silver. Like, you know.
You're yellow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's terrible. It's brutal, but it's good for certain people at certain times who need a boost. You know, you're a fat little kid or whatever it was, and maybe I'm talking about myself, and you need something important. And all of a sudden now, there's something that you can do that's a game. Like, you're not going to do the shuttle run. You're not going to do the flexed arm hang. You can't win basketball or dodgeball. You can't have kissing tag.
Where
and
are
be
your
the best.
strengths? Yeah.
And look at this. Holy smokes, I can read. I'm in silver, and I'm demonstrating a game power that's about some stupid thing reading these.
The parallels are frightening.
Reading
but I think we should
comprehensions.
move on.
Let's just say this, people. And again, I'm addressing you and me, you. What I wanted to get to is you want to get into game development. And I'm saying, I think a huge, like a giant market, and pull it back to your daughter, Mark, a giant untapped market is combining the overlays of reality, like I've lost the word for that, augmented reality.
Yeah, augmented reality, yeah.
And life gaming and things that we need people to do. Imagine gaming recycling, gaming waste reduction. And when I say waste, it's not WAIST. So
both, actually.
Kids could grow up in a world where they're getting gaming points or some valuable structure in community and society for doing something that's socially important.
There is an app available, or there's a game system available. I believe it's called Epic Win. I might ask our beautiful and
Epic
lovely
Win.
Mark to look up Epic. I believe it's called Epic Win, where basically what you do is you set a bunch of goals for yourself, and it automatically
I've seen
creates
this.
the
I've
gaming
seen this.
structure
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this to happen. So I go to the gym, I
Open-ended.
get points. I eat well, I get points. I go to work, I
Yeah.
get points, or however that works.
I've read about this. This
Is this it?
It's an initial system that does that, but it requires a little more buy-in.
Yeah, it's the kind of
But-
I'm not sure what that would call.
Well,
that
no, it's a
term, but-
precursor.
Yes,
it's a
thank you.
beachhead. It's coming into it, shoehorning people into a system. But you can see where this could go in
Absolutely.
a certain number of years from now. And some older folks, and by the way, Mark and I are certainly older folks, would be threatened by this and say, why do we have to turn everything into fun and everything into a game? Well, why do you have to turn it into a grind to get money,
Yes.
to buy groceries, to retire?
That's right. It's no different.
It's
In fact,
no different.
This crazy thought's hitting me as we're talking about this is that maybe we are actually right now with all of these kind of things setting ourselves up for a new kind of
Economic
currency,
structure.
an economic structure.
Well, let's call it, I would hate to say it that way because I don't think we can chuck money, but how about
This isn't going to
a
happen. today.
parallel structure that runs concurrent with that?
Yeah, the reward structure is different. So instead of me going to a job I hate, and again, this is going to kind of overlay my personal opinions about things, but why would I go to a job I hate to buy something to impress the neighbor that I don't particularly like?
Right.
Instead, I can be 2 levels higher.
Well, let's
or
look at
whatever.
it another way yet, something that's already happening is people are counting things like how many Twitter followers have you got? How many
This is
likes
true.
did you get on
This
your
is
status in Facebook, you know?
And I I'll throw it out there. Like I know probably the three of us aren't that much this way as far as always constantly checking it, but I know that a lot of people, they spend so much time just looking for that feedback. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Like it's like, and which maybe tells us something about society on a deeper level too. That maybe we are vastly insecure and we need that kind of
There's no
affirmation.
question. Yeah.
And
Well, let's put it this way. We're social creatures. We need to preen each other and get the bugs out of our hair and feel connected.
Right.
And that's a form of currency that can be manipulated by these.
Yeah.
If you're in a smart company and you can figure out a way to commodify or, adopt these reward structures and put them into your system, you get those silly Farmville invites, and,
Right.
and somehow somebody is getting up at 6 a.m. and buying these extra elements for their farms or whatever, and you can always hijack that reward system to make people pay you. People are getting the value they want out of that other commodity, whatever it is.
Yeah, virtual goods.
And
of course we have corporations taking advantage of that if it's a strength or a weakness in our culture.
I can't believe you just burped on camera.
I know, I apologize.
People at home, I'm very sorry.
Yeah. But what was I saying? Like, it's almost like a guilt trip. Like there's this sense with a lot of these games, that, especially the ones Zynga puts out, where you're almost guilted into doing things that you may not want to put the time into.
Do you mean? I don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
like with Farmville,
Like
for
pressure,
example.
like
because if you don't water the plants, it's so connected to my game. Like if you don't do this and that. And I didn't play Farmville, so this is just from hearsay.
I'm going to correct you then.
Okay.
Because I'm going to just jump in. How it often works, because these companies need more users, and because there's a cost. There's basically, I'm going to say one point, and it's going to be a little bit separate, but there's a but there's what's happening in the game industry is that it's splitting, because all of these companies who are coming in to do what's called social games on
gaming.
Right.
Facebook.
Can I just jump in?
Those people are hated by traditional game developers.
But they're often female-centric or female interest, and they're a wide spectrum games. So my mother would probably like them, and your mother, and my daughter and wife, and a guy that doesn't have a lot of time who's sitting at his desk and has a job that doesn't require a huge amount of his attention. And I think that what you're talking about, this elitist structure of largely young male gamers, maybe people younger than me, around your age too, who grew up in gaming culture, they look down on those games for the very reason that they're successful and appealing. They're easier. They reward you in a quicker, wider spectrum way.
I actually think, yes, I would agree with that in part. I think the main reason that the traditional gaming industry looks down on those games instead is that it's become a factory type business where those companies, those like Zynga, for instance, and companies like Zynga, those businesses are purely operated on mathematical formula and analytics.
Right.
They know how much it costs to acquire a user. They know how much an average user is going to spend.
Right.
They know how to nurture continued spending. And the point I was making to Mark's earlier statement is it's cheaper for them to acquire users by letting the users do it for them. So, for instance, in Farmville, for me to build a certain structure,
Right.
I need to recruit people into that system.
Right.
Yes.
Well, all I was going to get at is I think this is a good thing, not because...
I think it's a lesson to be learned.
Well, what I wanted to bring back, and if I could do that without going off on a tangent again, imagine socially responsible, socially helpful, beneficial things, or personally beneficial structures that use the same structures. So rather than it be my wheat, or I sound like an old man who doesn't know about Farmville, but whatever it is that's happening.
You want to build a barn, yeah.
Please help me build my barn. What if it was... and again, this is going to sound so corny, but think of a way that it could work is I recycled X amount. Like when I lived in Germany, something that appealed to me and was interesting is that they had layered, I don't know how to word it, I would call it layered recycling, so that there would be 4 recycling bins, organics, cardboard, plastic, glass, a number of different bins. And in Germany, it's as we've seen demonstrated in the 20th century, it's easy to get the people to do things they might not normally want to do. They have a greater likelihood to follow into patterns that others are doing. North America, it's different. So you give people these other alternate rewards, and all of a sudden you can have, people behaving in a way that is better for everyone following this, we'll call it gamification. And I don't know that the Zynga guys or whatever, I don't know if they're not in the forefront of setting up these structures that will allow this to happen.
And I would agree that they probably are.
Yeah.
They're in it to make, and I think they're very successful at it. Like I'm not going to be entirely like these guys are bad. They're making a pile of money off these people.
Well, they're not games that you or I would like.
They're not games that I would like.
But they're making a pile of money. Like I'm just bringing up a screen here. There's the estimates, and some estimate that Zynga's making well over $1 million of revenue a day.
Well, let me take
That's crazy.
I can give you a more down to earth example. There's a company in London that has done a couple social games, but one social game brought in $7.3 million in revenue in 1 year.
Wow.
They have a development staff.
You're saying it's a grassroots company.
This is a company that was started in London, Ontario.
Right.
$7.3 million on a development staff of like 8 people.
That's pretty nice.
That's pretty awesome.
Well, the idea that we're getting at is, I guess, to go back to the iPad 2 again, as these devices come out, and they're good for these kinds of games, augmented reality or mini social games or whatever, and the interconnectedness of our devices, enhances the games, and games enhance the interconnectedness. I think there are great opportunities for people like yourself who want to get into gaming, or companies who want to get into new ways of greeting or meeting their customers. If I can, let's take a quick jump out and look at something that's happening in Twitter. A lot of people don't use Twitter. Many do, but I find it hasn't penetrated a lot of teenagers who don't really use it. They use Facebook. And I don't know that a lot of middle-aged people are using Twitter. I think it's kind of associated with hipsters and certain cities in the U.S., San Francisco, California, New York, certain groups of people in the entertainment industry. But do you see Twitter as being almost another delivery vehicle for a type of gaming or a kind of augmented reality to work into this system at all? That's an open question.
I think it's been attempted. I think Twitter, again, if I look at Twitter as more of a microblog service or as a little bit of an ongoing group chat service, I think Twitter works really well in smaller verticals. So small groups of people will band together kind of on Twitter and communicate with each other. Whether, say, you have you have a topic that doesn't attract the bulk of people. You have a topic that's fairly narrow in that regard. And as far as businesses, I think the businesses are going to get more and more into Twitter as well.
Well, you see that happening now with they're blasting out coupons. Like if you subscribe to their Twitter feed, you'll get a coupon on a particular Thursday. You got to be there within an hour. It's time sensitive.
I'm not sure. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I think that it's something that's been attempted, but I think that's going to definitely grow in the future.
Well, I think my question. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say I think it's going to grow, but I also think that we're going to start seeing things get watered down as more and more companies jump in with these kind of applications and things like Groupon and all that. There's so many clones starting to come out that we're gonna. What's going to happen is we have masses of people in Facebook. We have masses of people, maybe not so much here in our rural area, but joining Twitter and things like this. And then all of these other social networks and systems are starting to come on. Even things like Lose It. It's going to get more and more niche, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I don't either. I'm not saying it is at all.
You're saying that the market will change. Like it will not be a mass market. Well, we've already seen that with TV and everything else. But I guess my question was, is there a Farmville for Twitter? Like, is that sitting somewhere that we're just not seeing?
I don't even know how that would work.
Well, I don't either.
You're the game developer.
Yeah, I said
it'd have to be a text-based game.
Well,
back to what we were talking about.
I'm saying not Farmville in a play style, but is there a game that could be done with Twitter? And you remember when ARGs? ARGs.
Are you talking about MUDs?
No, they were called ARGs. Like they're real gaming in the real world, like micro caching and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, in Manhattan, when they were playing Pac-Man on the streets of Manhattan, because it's a grid layer, right?
Alternate reality gaming, is that what it's called? I forgot.
Anyways,
you
look up
things like
if you looked up ARG, you'd see it. So there could be a game like that. So that, let's say Wendy's, and I don't have any affiliation with Wendy's, but Wendy's says
Baconators are delicious.
Are they?
Oh yeah.
So say Wendy's puts out a tweet to its clients, hey, if you can get to this Wendy's at this time and say this fun word or whatever it is, or find this object.
And companies have done that. Actually, someone did it very brilliantly as a business in Seaforth, and they were a bakery. Actually, and I think they've actually since closed and moved out. But
they went broke from the giving stuff away through Twitter.
Well, what happened was, what I think they did was brilliant, was they said, we've got like 6 cupcakes left. It's 10 to 5. I'm locking up at 5. Whoever gets here, I'm going to sell them to for like a quarter.
Nice.
Exactly. So
like that makes a lot of sense.
Now let's take that concept and put it into some form of game structure as well, right? This immediate response. Anyway, it strikes me that there are lots of opportunities for companies and people to...
I agree. And I think that's, I guess, and what we've kind of talked, it was Anthony who said earlier, this opportunity. And I think to finish up my thought about how things are going to get more and more niche, I think that it should be encouraging, as you said, Rand, for local people. And we should explain that we're from a very rural, small, like we live in a town of 7,000 people or 7,500 people. So
and,
we're not,
and 500 of those people are actually cattle.
and I think 40 of them are on Twitter, and that's going beyond. So there's a great opportunity for developers and tech-minded people not to be thinking about the big app, not be thinking about the Facebook or the the Twitter or the Groupon or whatever, but to be developing those kind of things for their own local niche markets and like-minded people and so forth.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, like, there may only be 40 people on Twitter, but those 40 people influence a lot of people offline.
Absolutely.
And maybe those platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and whatever, and I don't know that they are or aren't. I'm just saying, if they're open enough to allow small groups to utilize them in some way or connect them in some way or take the API and incorporate them into their own structures, that's really where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's where it gets really powerful, where you can take these different social networks using APIs and tie them together into one overall.
Should we say what APIs are for people that don't know, Anthony?
Application programming interface. So what that means is I can basically make a request to Facebook for data about users, and I can feed that into a website that ideally would be a group. So there'd be a bunch of us in a group that have a similar need or a similar niche. And as they join, we can share each other's data towards a common purpose.
So would a known Facebook API be Farmville? Would that be an API, or would be the one
be used by something outside of
it's
the
system? Fact that Facebook supplied an API that Zynga can create a game like Farmville.
Okay, well, I think we've hit some beautiful spots here today. I feel like
and it all comes back to, really things like the iPad and all of these devices that we're getting the internet in our pocket. Basically, that's what's really creating this revolution. And we should not just say iPad, but things like the Zoom and the Samsung Galaxy and all of these other devices.
We could have hit a number of devices. And it is true that we are probably going to talk about Apple too much whenever we talk about things that are happening, but here's one of the flaws: is that company is so happening right now. It's kind of their time, and it's been their time for 3 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. Maybe more than 3 years. When did it all start with the iPod? But what year was it? I don't even know. I don't remember.
Was 2000
4 years.
5? 4?
I was going to say it'd be 2000. I think it was 2003, 2004.
Okay, so since then they've owned the pie. but there's nothing to say that another company is not going to come up and then everybody will talk about them all the time.
Yeah, that's Apple's blessing and curse. Like, I think in Apple's regard is like Apple develops very polished hardware. The other side of Apple, and this is a nice dichotomy between Apple and say Android or the Google system, is like Apple has a very closed system.
Oh, that's the
Android
worst
has
part.
a very open system. So there are risks and benefits to both approaches.
Right.
And it's nice that both of those companies are very successful.
Right.
That gives people a lot of options.
It's nice that they're pushing each other.
Exactly.
Love the open market. I think maybe we'll tamp it down for today. If you remember what a tamper is, I don't know if you've ever has anyone made a back deck or something. You know what a tamper is?
I know what a tamper is. I did construction for years.
So let's tamp this down here.
I might have to use that in my Lose It app. I didn't see that in there. I might have to add that one.
How much tamping?
How much tamping? Because there's a lot of vibration happening with that thing.
You're going to tamp down the food?
Tamping it down.
Why don't we tamp this down by suggesting everybody gets their little moment. What do you want to say about the iPad 2 or anything we've thrown out today, Anthony? How do you want to cap it off or tamp it down?
As far as the iPad 2, I don't know if there's much I can say that hasn't been said before. I think it is a great piece of hardware. I think it is closer to replacing. I think it is going to murder the netbook, if it hasn't already murdered the netbook already. I think it's going to kind of put the nail in the coffin, shall we say.
In spite of the price difference?
In spite of the price difference. I think the price is, for what you get, I think it's a great price. No doubt about that.
That's surprising to hear that. I wasn't
and that's
ready
where
for you
Apple
to say
wins, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Because you look at the Zoom, it's like $800.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Again, there's things I can't, for me, my investment in an Apple product isn't as great as someone else's. As a non-technical person, I think Apple has a lot more value than they are to the sort of
you're already established in the PC world.
Yeah.
Mark, what would you tamp in there?
Well, I agree with Anthony that this device is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it from a creation standpoint. I really think with this device, I can limit the amount of gear I take out on, say, on a location to do a podcast or to do a video shoot. There's just so many applications for this device that I'm looking forward to, and I'm excited about it. The price though it didn't come down from last year's model, but that price point, I think it's cheap enough that a lot of people are going to continue to get into it, and the more people that have these in their hands, it's going to strengthen this network that we're talking about, the social network, and make it more accessible. And from a perspective of like what you're talking about with schools and things like that, that's going to be the key. Like these things getting into the hands of students, and
well, we need living textbooks. We need textbooks that are evergreen and coming up on a tab device. We can't keep buying textbooks. The money is crazy. And hey, I mean, I'm sure that all those deals, all those content partnerships are in the works, and I'm sure that big companies like Prentice Hall or Oxford Press that make textbooks, they've all got plans. I mean,
instead of having to like go out and buy all the second edition books, you basically have a software update.
It is onerous.
Think
about your first year of university or college when you're given your textbook bill, and it is so disturbing. And even though you can come back and there's a market for second runs used textbooks, and you can trade back and forth, it's terrible in a sense that, you know, it's scary already. You're leaving home, and you know there are many things to get used to, and you're looking after yourself for the first time, and you think you've budgeted out, and then you find out how much money your textbooks are, and how much a school spends in textbooks is hard to believe. And this is just my perspective because I'm a teacher, but to see a kid with an iPad or whatever the device, I don't care what it is, that they can subscribe to their textbooks for a year and pay a smaller fee, and the companies have less infrastructure to concern themselves with. I think that's a great idea.
I think it's great. And one thing that's just jumping into my brain here is when we touched on the idea of the changing commodities and the way our money system works. I was just thinking, you know, we have a generation of young people that have grown up with basically getting content for free, and a bunch of old guys here too. You know, downloaders. And though there's all kinds of corporations and companies trying to hold on to that old business model and afraid to give up things like textbook publication digitally because they make so much money with revisions and so on and so forth. I think it's pretty exciting that we have this generation growing up that we're allowed to download things for free, and they're not going to put up with spending the kind of money that's been spent in times past on things like textbooks.
Well, I don't know how that's good necessarily if companies would say it's hard to get there. This is a whole other can of worms that we probably shouldn't open.
And I'm more or less just thinking about the whole commodity thing, that the value of people and the value like of money and so on is those kind of things. Something's shifting, I guess. That's the best way I can put it.
And this is getting close to hustler.
Yeah, thinking. It is. It's going into that kind of thing. But what I guess I'm just excited about this technology and how it may enable us to maybe just do more of the things that we love to do.
I think it's going to be difficult to trade a chicken to a textbook writer via an iPad. You know? I'm just saying if you're going to have a barter system.
Yeah.
I just want to do
I'm
my
not talking
final
about a barter system.
I know you're not. You're talking about some other alternate structure.
Yeah.
My final thought is this. This is why I like the iPad too. It's go and get some big graphic intensive PDF that has a lot of pictures in it, that has multiple pages. Put it on an iPad, turn the page, watch it, try to draw the screen. Frustrating. And some of the PDFs that I have converted are big and graphics intensive, so I like that. I like a faster read. I want it to be just like a book in terms of speed. I want it to feel like a book. I like that interface. And the second thing is, I don't have to turn on a light or take a flashlight under my covers when I'm reading under the covers in my bunk bed.
Yeah.
I just take in the iPad, and it's a great light source. And the iPad 2 is just going to be more of that I like from the iPad 1, only faster. So when I'm in the tent, under the covers.
Or where we're all in the bunk bed.
When we're in our bunk bed.
All three of us, it's going to be awesome.
The tech bunk bed, yeah.
The thing about the tech bunk bed that a lot of people don't know is that it's just one bed. It's a single bed, and we're all in there, and it's awkward.
It's very awkward.
There's nobody on the top.
No.
Because no one can agree.
Oh, it's scary up there.
It's too close to the Devils. Okay, thanks for coming out, everybody. Although, to be fair, you didn't go or come anywhere. You're staying wherever you were. It's us that came out. So thanks for coming out, us. Like, we did a great job of coming out today.
That was a nice chat. Always good to see Rand and Anthony.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate
very
that.
kind.
I'm happy to
And
see
thank you
as
for
well.
hosting us in the Palatial.
You're very welcome.
I think we should
FauxTech.
continue
Did
to
you say
thank
the fellatio?
Whoa, we got to cut that. We can't have that.
Palatial.
Oh, I heard something totally different.
I have a feeling that's gonna be
that was
cut.
the house down the street.
Someone's going to
That
become
wasn't
very
there.
thankful. Yes.
That's going to be cut. The problem is he's not going to cut that, and
No,
now
I
we've
won't.
just gotten
That's
a
not
rating.
What is not a bad word?
It's NC.
I'm pretty sure it's a bad word.
Really?
NC-17.
It might be NC-17. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the number of the Starship Enterprise?
No, that's
NC-17.
NCC something 71, I believe.
I was
I'm
going
going to lose
whole,
my geek cred here.
I don't have any. I you know what? Listen, can I just say this is another podcast for another day? I've never liked Star Trek.
No,
I tried so hard when I was a little kid, but I remember thinking, these guys are not doing anything. Nothing's happening.
Yeah,
These are lazy people. They just fly around
And sit
and complain
there.
a lot about what other people are doing.
Yeah. And I never watched The Next Generation at
I
all.
was a Star Wars fan myself.
Yeah.
That was
Me
kinda-
Do you think those two worlds don't meet? They have to meet.
the Venn diagram of the two has a very narrow sliver
They have
overlapping?
to. Come on.
They meet. No, they touch, and there's a small overlap.
I think there's got to be a huge overlap. Isn't there? Huge. Huge. It has to be monstrous. It's the same kind of... Okay, the difference? Star Wars, lots of stuff happens. Star Trek,
And
not
I'm talking.
much
I'm
happens.
talking old Star Wars. I'm not talking new horrible Star Wars either. Oh, we need to wrap this up. This is
I
gonna
don't...
go.
Listen, I'm not going to defend... How dare you?
So on that note, let's wrap it up.
Wow.
Space, the final frontier.
Oh, this is classic. I see. I'm into classic Star Trek.
Final frontier. It sounds like he's pitched up.
I'm George Takei. Damn it.
Voyages of the
Yeah, this
starship
sounds a bit weird.
Enterprise.
I do a good impression of
Its
George
five-year
Takei.
mission
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
to
You wanna
explore
hear it?
strange new worlds.
Listen, it's
To
pitch,
seek
the
out
pitch.
new life
The pitch
and
is
new
too high.
civilization.
Yeah, it
It
is.
sure does sound like it.
new
To
world.
boldly go where no man has gone before.
I don't want to say. Just please don't let it play.
It's okay.
It gives me a headache. I
We
had a
love Star
roommate.
Trek.
I had a
I'm enjoying
roommate
this.
that watched a lot of Star Trek.
Like this Star Trek classic.
Yeah, and he called it classic. He called it Star Trek
It is
classic.
classic. It's how could it be anything else? It's like
I
the
think
same
often
set
classic.
painted different colors.
Right.
Yeah.
Classic often means not particularly good.
Oh, you
Doesn't
think
it?
that's a buzzword for dated?
Dated.
Yeah.
Listen, here's what I want to say. First
Oh
of all,
man,
Man, that's
I do,
it's a great graphic. Right
I
there.
know.
I do a
That's
great
pretty good.
impression of George Takei. I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
Well, I think you've got freakishly large corn.
Awesome.
It's best if I grab the microphone like this, of course. I interviewed him, which I'll tell that story someday.
Okay.
I interviewed him at a Star Trek conference back in the 1990s. It was.
Oh, this is before his resurgence, even.
Yes, it was. I think when he was traveling around, mostly doing Star Trek conferences. Actually, he has a very erudite way of speaking.
He does. Was Jimmy Doohan there?
No, it was.
Is he already not with us?
Recently, I've been troubled to hear comments made by former
It's
NBA
always ruins.
Oh, this is a great
It
YouTube
ruins
video.
the
Who said-
impressions.
That's not at all. I actually
Let
think
it
it's
be
quite
known.
impressive.
I don't like gay people.
I don't
I'm
like gay
homophobic.
people.
George Takei.
As a
Oh,
gay
this is so
man and a
hilarious.
human being, I was shocked and saddened.
Anyway, I think
you let him
Randall.
get to the chocolatey,
okay.
the
All
bit
right,
about the
let's
rubbing
finish
his
it up.
chocolatey head. Oh, maybe I
On
should.
behalf of
yeah.
gay people everywhere,
What?
that despite your ugly words, we don't hate you. As a matter of fact, we like you. We like you very much.
He's very good.
Particularly like
That's awesome.
your large, powerful cat.
Good for him.
Your smooth, chocolatey head, glazed in man sweat. I'll keep my eyes on you, and let it be known, one day, when you least expect it, I will have sex with you.
Nice. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I love sweaty basketball players.
I love it.
Well, I think Randall
was
Bob, you
awesome.
did a fantastic impression.
That's
I just do the
incredible.
best I can, of course. Listen, let it be said that I support gay people
Oh,
in
absolutely.
a big way. And
All of us
when
do.
my experience with George Takei was awkward because I didn't know he was gay, and he was acting in a way that makes total sense when you know that he's gay, but when you
Right.
don't know, and just the way
Right.
that the situation was, it was very disconcerting. I thought, I don't quite understand how, like, the flow of the conversation was so strange. I was interviewing him for what I thought was going to be an article for a magazine, and
Yeah.
the flow of conversation was very strange. But once I found out he was gay, I thought, oh, okay. It was not that he was flirting with me, he was just being flirtatious and
Yeah.
and just
Sure.
just sort of like jokey in a flirtatious way. But when you don't know that, like,
Yeah.
have we met before? Because you're speaking to me. One of the lines from the interview that I'll tell you this whole thing someday, but he said this: "Would you say it was freakishly large corn?" That was the line.
I would say that's a good cliffhanger to end this podcast on.
It's a half clinger. Thanks for coming out, everybody. We'll catch you on the flip.
Peace.
Later.